Hi, my name is Jen Watson and I'm the Student Success Center Technician. I create workshops like these throughout the fall and spring semesters. If you ever have questions about a workshop, feel free to contact me. My contact information will be included in the last slide. During the spring semester, many students are beginning to think of life after college, and a part of that is creating covers, letters, and resumes that you will use to get an interview. If an employer thinks that your resume shows that you are qualified for the position, they will call you in for that interview. Interviews can be a nerve-wracking experience, but the more you are prepared and the more practice you get, the better you will do. In this workshop, we will discuss preparation, first impressions, sample questions, verbal and nonverbal communication, and what to do at the end of an interview. Let's begin with what it takes to be well prepared for an interview. I will break it down into 3 parts: the job posting, researching the company, and social media. These 3 parts will give you an idea of the most likely topics of the questions you will be asked in an interview. First, the job description posting plays a significant role in what your resume should look like and can give away the kinds of questions you might be asked in the interview. This job description is a sample of a larger one that I found on Indeed for an account manager. For this position, the employer is looking for someone that can maintain strong professional relationships, work in a team environment, openly shares and listens, can effectively communicate, and their efforts result in increased sales and/or revenue. After you carefully read through the job description, start thinking about how you qualify. Can you turn the statements into possible questions? For example, how in the past have you maintained strong professional relationships with customers? You can predict this question, so you should be able to come up with a good, clear answer. Why are you qualified? Where do you think you will excel in what they are asking for, and where might you lack in experience? It is good to know what your strengths and weaknesses will be before being put on the spot in the interview. What are your personal goals? Your personal goals should match up with the job description. If you don't want to be an account manager, you probably shouldn't be applying for account manager positions, and it will show in your interview. Why do you want this job? Maybe communication skills are what you like and are best at, so then perhaps that is why you fit in with the description and would be good at the job. Don't let a question like this throw you off. Really think about why you want the job you are applying for, besides just only needing a job. Part 2 of preparing for an interview is about researching the facility or company that you're interviewing at. Here's where you can put some of your internet research skills to the test. Check out the company's website and see if you can find their mission statement. You don't need to memorize it, but it is good to know where their priorities lie. You can also gear some of your interview answers to show that you fit in with the company's mission. It's also great to know who the company's audience or customers are. Also, while you're on the website, you can try and find out if they have won any awards or see where they stand in the community. This research is essential because in most interviews, the interviewer will ask you a question to find out if you did this kind of research. If you can come up with a good answer, it can be impressive. Here is an example of what Amazon's vision and mission are. You can see right away that the company is based on customer experience and technology. By knowing this, you can find ways to insert that information into some of your answers in the interview. Part 3 of preparing for an interview is all about social media. You might find that some companies don't have or may not keep up with a website, but they are active on social media. There are a couple of things that you can look for when doing this. How are they interacting? What are they reposting? And what are their ratings and reviews by customers? Lastly, before you even start applying for jobs, you need to clean up your social media. You need to expect that wherever you fill out an application or turn in a resume, somebody will do a check of your Facebook or search your name on Google. Do not be afraid of this, and don't merely delete your social media. It's a chance for your prospective employer to see what you are like outside of the job. When job searching, it's important to keep up your social media for this reason. After researching and preparing for your interview, the next thing you need to think about is what you're going to wear. You need to remember that what you wear when first meeting an employer has a lot to do with your first impression. The general advice is to wear something professional and simple, clean, and that is neutral in color. Try not to wear anything flashy or bright or that might take away from what you are saying in the interview. You also want to make sure that you are comfortable. If you don't wear professional type clothing regularly, make sure that you try things on before the day of the interview in case you have to go out and get something else. Being comfortable will also help you from fidgeting too much in your chair and keep you from pulling on your clothes if it doesn't fit right. For women, there are some extra things to think about. Make sure that you are wearing light makeup, wear closed-toed shoes, try to stay away from high heels. Again, just make sure that you are comfortable. For most interviews, both men and women should wear a button-down dress shirt with a blazer, slacks, and nice shoes. You also need to bring a few things to interviews, which you should prepare before the day of. A portfolio if you have one. Extra resumes because sometimes you will be interviewed by a panel. So it's a good idea to bring extra resumes in case the whole panel doesn't have a copy. Also, if your resume has color, a lot of times the interviewers won't print them in color, so it's a good idea to bring color copies to hand out. Have a transcript from college on hand, but only bring this if they ask. Your list of references, again, only bring this out if they ask. And finally, a list of questions. Make sure that you write down a few questions for the interviewer that you might have about the company or what it is like to work there. They will always ask if you have questions at the end of the interview, and by that point you may have the urge to flee, but it is important to try and show that you are serious by having your own questions prepared. Here are some additional tips on how you can make a good first impression. After all, 80% of employers will decide if they want to hire you within the first 10 seconds of you walking into the room. Make sure to arrive early. Make sure that you know where you're going and how long it will take you to get there. If you arrive more than 15 minutes early, it's best to wait in your car. You don't want to have to sit in a waiting room for too long or make the interviewers feel rushed to meet with you. Leave your friends, family, and significant other at home. Unfortunately, this is obvious, but I still have to mention it. You don't want the people you are with to influence your first impression. It is unprofessional. If you need a ride to the interview, make sure whoever drives you stays in the car. Turn off your cell phone, or what I prefer is to leave it in the car. This will avoid any embarrassing situations where your phone goes off during your interview. Also, while you are waiting for the interview to start, you don't want to be tempted into looking at your phone while you should be chatting with a receptionist or whoever else is around you. The interviewer will ask receptionists of their first impression of you as well. A firm handshake that matches the interviewer is a good way to begin. Make sure you make eye contact and keep making eye contact through the entire meeting. Now you're going to transition into the types of questions you will most likely be asked in your interview. I will separate these questions into two categories. The first category is classic questions. These questions are usually used as icebreaker questions that help the interviewer get a sense of who you are as a person and also try to make you more comfortable. The second category is behavioral-based questions, which tend to be more difficult and require more thought. These are some of the most common classic questions you will come across in an interview. A great way of practicing these questions is by writing out your answers and then talk them out with a friend or family member. When I am practicing answering questions for an interview, my routine is to go for long walks with my husband, have him ask me questions, and I work out how I would answer. Tell me about yourself. Sometimes a statement is used as the first question to get you talking. When an interviewer asks about you, you need to narrow down a few relevant key points. You could talk about where you are from, where you went to school, your family, and your interests outside of work, and how this all ties into why you would be good for the position. Describe your past work experience. When an interviewer asks you to talk about your previous jobs, make sure that you highlight the good. Do not get caught in the trap of complaining about your past supervisors and coworkers. This will send up a red flag. Here you want to highlight some of the positions you have on your resume, your titles, and some of your job duties. If you are changing your your career have been out of the workforce or are new to the workforce, you could explain why. If your work experience is out of date or you don't have any, make sure that you don't refuse the question, but answer in more creative ways, such as how you ran your household for 15 years, or you volunteered and was a part of clubs in high school. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? This question is important to prepare for a couple of reasons. Most companies want to know if you are in this for the long haul, so you want to make sure that your goals line up with you using this job as experience to complete your own goal. It also will show that you have goals in general, which is important in any employee. What are your strengths and weaknesses? This question is dreaded by many. It is a loaded question and is sometimes unfair, but it will be asked. While you are preparing for your interview, make sure you write about 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses. Try to think about what they are. For your strengths, make sure you can prove it by using examples. For example, you could say that you are good with technology. If you just say that, it doesn't mean anything. But if you can list off some classes you took, what kind of technology you're good at, and how you want to apply it in the position you're interviewing for, then you have answered that part of the question. When it comes to weaknesses, remember that everyone has flaws, so please never tell an interviewer that you do not have any. Probably the most cliched answer is that you work too hard, but I will use it as an example because saying that you work too hard shows that you are hardworking and may not be a weakness in the eyes of an employer. The idea here is to turn your weakness into a strength. In an interview, you may find that the classic questions are right at the beginning, but sometimes they are mixed in with more complex behavioral-based questions. Behavioral-based questions are the most common questions asked by interviewers. The reason for that is that it challenges you to recall and relive situations. This shows the interviewer your thought process, decision-making skills, your emotional state, and the results of your actions. The more you are prepared to answer these questions, the better you will be able to control the storyline and keep your emotions in check. Behavioral-based questions can usually be broken down into 4 categories. Many questions could be asked for any given career. One of the best ways of preparing and practicing is by coming up with a handful of specific examples for each category. They are teamwork-oriented, problem-solving, initiative, leadership, challenge, stress, pressure. The following are examples of behavioral-based questions that might be asked in an interview. How do you deal with pressure and stressful situations? If a fellow staff member is breaking a certain policy of the facility, then what actions would you take? Tell me about a time you took the lead on a difficult project. You should take the time to answer each question and do so thoughtfully. Your answer should also be set up like a story with a beginning, middle, and end. These are not yes or no questions, and they are not short answer questions. For each, you should start by giving the exact situation of what happened to you. This sets up your story and gives you a beginning. Once you set up the story, explain your reaction and the steps you took to solve the problem. If there are negatives to your story, make sure that you address them and turn them into positives. Not all your answers need to be situations that you handled perfectly. You can show that you have made some mistakes, that you recognize them, and that you learn from them. If you would like a more extensive list of possible interview questions, please contact me and I will get them for you. For the question, how do you deal with pressure and stressful situations? A good answer could be, I was recently assigned a last-minute project. Instead of panicking, I took a few moments to outline a schedule and map out my game plan. Then I got to work. I made sure to communicate my progress with my manager so that they could stay in the loop. If any problems came up, I looped them in so we could troubleshoot and continue to make progress. I was able to complete the project on time and the client was thrilled. Of course, you can make this even better by adding in specific details to really tell the story. Along with answering questions in an interview, there is verbal and nonverbal communication that you are presenting. Make sure that you smile appropriately. Interviews can be stressful and frightening, and sometimes your body will handle that stress in strange ways. It is important to be mindful of what you are doing. In interviews, smile and be happy that you are there, and try to be yourself. Be engaged and cheerful. Remember that whoever is interviewing you is interviewing you for a job and also a coworker. You need to show that you are interested and excited to begin working there. A way to show that you are engaged is to lean forward and nod. This is a sign of active listening and will help you focus on what is being said. You will hopefully be bringing at least a file that has extra resumes, reference lists, and a list of your questions, and some blank paper in case you need to take notes. If you also have a purse, bag, or briefcase, make sure to keep your extra stuff on the floor. You don't want to seem messy and unorganized by having to shuffle your stuff around on someone else's desk. Sit comfortably with nothing in your hands. Some people try to sit on their hands so they don't wave them around too much, but this position looks unnatural. When you practice interview questions, also practice having control over your hands. Avoid rambling, slang, and swearing. Most likely you will be nervous, which may lead to doing some embarrassing things. Practicing and being confident will help to keep yourself in line. The end of your interview can also be important. Usually this is the part of the interview where you have the chance to cover anything else that was missed. If you skipped a question because you couldn't think of an answer, or if you feel like you need to revisit a question, this is the time to do it. Your interviewer will appreciate you clearing up anything and will also show some critical thinking skills. Show enthusiasm about hearing back. Don't just get up and leave. Be thankful and mention something about your excitement of hearing back from them. If they don't offer the information, you can ask when they will make their decision. Finally, within 48 hours, be sure to send a thank you email to the interviewer and anyone else that was involved in the process. For more information, you can visit any of these websites. They offer practice questions and answers, as well as other tips and advice from experts. Thank you for following along with this workshop. If you need help along the way, feel free to contact me. Please click on the link to fill out a very short survey. Surveys like these help me present the best workshops possible.